Front door.
It is fine. Yeah, my front door locks, so I can't automatically unlock it.
Very good, already. So we'll bring the committee meeting to order and we got everybody here and we can see if we need any minute changes or.
I already read through the minutes. I told Leslie we have no changes that I could see. I'll just put that as a disclosure that I could see.
Yeah, so we didn't have any specific items that the staff was working on or anything like that, so I just wanted to kind of, since we had a council meeting or workshop tonight, I just figured what things we could talk about of interest. You know, we had that WSU storm pond over there, of course, on the WSU piece, right? But then my contention is it's significantly valuable property, you know, and, options for future use of that property, we want to try to optimize whatever that is, right? And I don't know if there's any options that we can look at or anybody had any kind of ideas on different uses for that stormwater pond. Well, it's because there's like, are they both, is it one? That's Pierce County's and ours, right?
No, Pierce County has a small little one
Yeah.
that's separate that they own.
Okay.
And then there's the big one
Yeah.
that has two cells. One is a treatment cell and one is a detention cell where you actually detain the water and then infiltrate it. That stormwater pond serves
All the Costco.
all Costco, the medical clinic, that whole area. It also serves a lot of the movie theater complex. Because when they did the development of the Costco site, they realized that all of that water was being discharged directly onto the washouts of basically right where the Dr. John's building went, there was a pipe that came onto the site and just dumped all the water from the parking lots for the sushi place and the movie theater. So that got picked up and put into also that stormwater pond. And then under the current development agreement, it gets extended to also serve for the residential side.
Yeah.
Any relocation of that pond would require building a pond of the same size,
Yeah.
which means we would have to acquire property somewhere else to build that pond. And then figure out how to get the water there. It would be a very expensive project.
True. Yeah, indeed. Because if there's, so across the street, like Ponderosa or whatever, is that, or whatever it is, so.
Yeah.
They have some kind of a detention pond or something in there. I don't know what the capacity looks like in theirs. There's kind of like an unofficial.
Well, theirs is an unofficial, there's an unofficial pond that was built in 1970s.
Kind of there.
Not to the current standards. So you'd have to build one to the current standards, which means you have to treat when you're determining the size of the pond, you have to assume that what you're replacing is completely a tilled forest, which means it has almost zero runoff. So you have to be able to gather all that water and move it. So you could vault it. That would be redesigning the entire system because the way it's designed right now is the first cell is a treatment cell where sediment comes in and every so often we have to go in and basically scrape it and scoop it out. You can't have that type of a system when you vault it. So you have to, I mean, it's not that it can't be done. You can point to all over the area.
Oh, yeah.
But whether or not it's something within the financial realms of the city being able to take on as part of the parks project, it would be extremely costly.
That's what I like.
So the city that, let me get this right. So that city property, right?
Yeah,
And that came to us through the development agreement.
correct.
So we had a development agreement with, so that Costco could dump their water into city property.
Correct. That's a regional pond that we maintain.
Regional pond. So is that why Fred Meyer can do the same thing?
So I think,
And they don't-
when we did the development agreement, we didn't know it was possible.
Yeah, it was,
Sure.
yeah, it was just, it was gonna be a regional pond that served
The commercial area.
that commercial area.
Okay.
And apparently the residential too.
and the residential area.
Future, whatever it is.
Yeah, when the development agreement was written,
Does that include Terragon?
yes,
Is it residential?
that's the residential side. So
How big is that storm water pond? Like, is it like an acre,
no, you're talking
10 acres?
yeah, it's huge.
How many acres is that property?
Which problem?
Water is like 40 or whatever.
WSU for our portion of the property that we could be putting parks on.
When you pull out the stormwater pond, you're down to somewhere between 27 and 30 acres. Tarragon and I were talking about that. We were trying to figure some things out. So you could vault it, but you're talking vaulting a huge,
Well, you got
Stick
the cost
to-
benefit thing or
a
something,
6 to 10
right?
acre vault. I mean, it's a,
Well, depending on what but you gotta do cost benefit on whatever, if you looked at something like that.
What does vaulting mean?
means making it,
Like a bridge or?
no, it means it becomes an underground vault. You don't even see it.
Like it at Lowe's and.
Takes a loading and one of them.
And Lowe's has one in the parking lot.
I have one in my driveway.
You might have one in your driveway.
Tiny, though. It's probably not.
Little tiny cheap, mini tiny.
Yeah.
But that's my point is these things are not, they're not a cheap,
No.
they're not a cheap solution. And so, I mean, right now, a ball field's gonna run you about, John, correct me if I'm wrong, let's say about $4.5 million with all the stuff. I'm just thinking about ball field 5.
Oh,
Because ball field 5 had to put they had to do some detention work under ball field 5 to do some infiltration for that facility.
Yeah, there's a lot of plumbing under there.
Yeah, there's a lot of plumbing under there. And so it gets really, it's not that it's impossible, it's
Well, it's just phasing, though. What I was trying to get at is like, cause if you were gonna, you have to look at the cost of the land, and then, and you're talking, when you and I are gone, right? For how we set it up for the future type folks that are sitting out there and they're like, oh, well, we built the field over here, but we knew that in 10 years, we'd be able to come back in here and vault that at that point, because the land's worth 3 times as much, and now the vault's cost effective, and we can use it for the parking lot, and then, and undo that parking lot and make it whatever, right?
a decade from now, who knows what the land values would be, and it would be,
Yeah, that's what we do on our side, right?
Yeah,
And that's how we have to lay out these plans, because you have your comp plan out to 50 years or whatever, and some of the stuff out there, and our ADA plan out for 500 years or whatever, so we know where we want to end up.
1,000 years?
but I would say, as you also escalate,
So we get smart use of.
as you escalate the land value, you also have to escalate the construction costs.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the same thing you were having problems with. So, if you want us to,
I don't know whether anybody has any, because, I love, on like the backside of Cedar View, right, whatever it is, all of that and or the Fennel Creek is sitting right there,
that's all critical area.
significant lower elevation.
Yeah, but that's all critical area that
Yeah.
we wouldn't be able to get permits to tear out to put a stormwater.
Yeah, but
pond.
why would you kind of like need that?
Because you have to still-
The infiltration and the treatment and all this
You
kind of
still,
stuff. right?
even if you're doing a discharge pond.
Yeah.
Where you discharge water
Yeah.
and it doesn't infiltrate on site, your detention volume
Yeah.
still has to be able to detain all that water. So I can't just pump it into the creek. I'd have to,
Right.
so if you look down 96, Chris built for his project, he's building
Oh, yeah.
multiple stormwater ponds. One of them is a 5 acre pond and it does discharge to Fennel Creek. Because you have to be able to physically detain all that water
Yeah.
and release it at
Release a
the
certain rate.
at the same rate that you would release off of a tilled forest, which is very little at a very low rate. And so, yeah, so it's doable, but you would still have to build a pond somewhere, which means we'd have to acquire property somewhere else to build.
Because we did it
That
over
one.
here, we did it over on the side of here. We had the property and we did whatever we did to get these properties out there.
Yeah, there's a big, but it's still a big regional
Oh, yeah.
retention pond on city property.
Yeah.
That's the same thing we're doing down here for downtown.
Because then it was like behind Home Depot or whatever.
or Target.
It was, well, yeah. Remember that place back there and, whatever that huge area is behind Home Depot. It's kind of strange. It's a gigantic.
Gigantic wetland, gigantic large wetland. Most of the areas that you're looking at that are big flat areas, 20 years ago, we'd have a completely different discussion. Now, those are all, you're just adding money to your project.
Yeah.
Or even if you could get approval to do it because you're impacting critical areas.
Yeah.
So that's and then to give a new discharge to the creek is Department of Ecology, and they're not allowing new discharge points.
We're fancy.
Interesting.
Because we
Because they
ran all the water into lake taps, you know, we pumped out all the stuff into lake taps magically, you know.
Well, so it's a little different. So lake taps years ago, yeah, so I'll get back to the deal. Let me, so when you do a new outfall on any sort of creek, and you have to get approval, it's what's called a hydraulic projects approval, which comes from the Department of Fish and Wildlife. You also have to get DOE approval. So anytime we want to build a new outfall onto any sort of water body, not to say it's not impossible, but it's a very high standard to get through. Because you have to have that Fish and Wildlife, you're doing,
Chris, they're figuring it out, right?
he hasn't done any new outfalls. He did a culvert extension. So all he did was a little,
Oh, well, we're not doing any outfall, let's do a culvert extension.
Right.
Right?
If we had a place to put it, you gotta place.
yeah, you gotta build a detention pond, which means condemning and taking private property to build the vault.
Yeah, you know, that's,
Not necessarily, you know, it just means acquiring property.
Okay, yes, you have to acquire the city would have to physically acquire 10 acres of property
sure.
somewhere else to build the pond.
And if you look.
And there's no 10-acre chunks that exist. You're acquiring it from multiple property owners.
Maybe, yeah, but like I said, and it's too far away, I think, but the backside of Cedar View too, there's like every lot on the side of that hill, it's like.
Yeah, that's
Open,
that's all, because it's all steep slopes and
steep slope,
wetlands and.
well, at the bottom it is, right?
And so, yeah. And so then with the other,
So vaulting might be the most.
vaulting would be a better option
economical.
if you're comparing the two.
Well, it's ultimately, in my mind, you want to set it up so that you can use it in the future for something, like whether it's building a soccer field on top of it or building a parking lot on top.
The parks plan does not preclude that from happening. It just does not include that as a project.
Oh, yeah,
Because it would be
have to look at it because,
prohibitively expensive.
you know, me, when you guys are like, oh, well, you can't do that, right? And the first thing anybody tells me I can't, and I'm like, what?
It would probably add millions of dollars to the park plan.
Yeah. But if it's only a couple million, you know, we're done, right? You need to add zeros.
I don't think it's a couple.
Tens of millions, then, right?
I don't know.
Then it might be a-
That's why I just said millions.
Why would it cost so much to cover it? So can't you just put like a big tube under there and?
No, you have to redesign the whole system, how it operates, and then it's all poured in place concrete.
Depends on, there's multiple, there's like,
Yeah, you
there's
could,
a lot of different technology, but yeah, it's not.
well, no, because the way that, like I said, the way the system is designed is the banks aren't designed to support load. So you'd have to redesign the whole system.
We're trying to get a lot of usage on it. In my mind, you want to set it up so that you can use it for.
Yeah, and so it gets really expensive. I mean, if the council really wants us to put that in the park plan and have I can work with it.
Put it in there, I just wanted to kind of get an idea. If
I
it's
can-
not that there's somebody that can say, oh, well, you know, this is like, you got these options.
Order of magnitude.
Yeah.
I can look at- I can ask-
The $5 million plan.
I can ask the,
Cause there's a lot of vendors you gotta have like contacts with. It's like, hey,
but it's I can,
give me an idea.
I
what
don't
this
know,
costs.
I don't know. I don't
It's kind of
know.
a freebie to you.
Well, it's not so much a vendor issue. It's going to be, how do you redesign the system?
Sure.
Because your treatment cell isn't going to work. I guess you could leave the treatment cell the way, I don't know.
But maybe you cut it in half, right? Maybe you discover that, oh, you know, you can like vault this half, but the
I-
treatment cell you need to leave open because it's like something you need to work with. I just see it all over the place.
I do too. My guess is,
Some that Sullivan Field,
Sullivan Field.
No, my guy,
Yeah.
That would be awesome, right?
my guy,
If you can get the
Yeah,
codes
there you go,
right, the way
James.
that we need them to be done, so we can build it, we're definitely.
the codes
Making
exist.
your name a legacy.
The codes exist. It's the council wanting to spend the money. It's more of a cost issue than it is. I mean, we both, I did a park on top of a stormwater vault when I worked in Des Moines 12 years ago. I mean, it's not that it can't be done. But in that case, it was being done by a developer, and he made the decision that having to do a park and a vault, the homes that he would get to construct was how he got his ROI. See, we're not gonna be able to say that the ROI has this, he said, if I build a park, I have to give up 12 homes or 10 homes. So if I do a vault, does the cost of the vault offset now that I get to build 12 homes that I didn't get to build? So he got to do an economic calculations on return on investment. It's gonna be a little different from parks because you're never going to recapture that cost unless you're renting the field out for
Millions of dollars.
millions of dollars, right? So I can ask the park consultant to see what that would take and whether or not we have money to do it, left in the budget.
Cause right now we've got frisbee golf going through there.
Right, because it didn't require any.
Sure, yeah. Makes sense for today, tomorrow and next year.
And I would say the other option and my recommendation is that we have to update the parks plan in 6 years because you always have to have them updated every 6 years to keep your certification compliance with RCO for grants. That's something that we put in the hopper and look at in 6 years. That would be my recommendation. Is that,
Yeah, but when you look at it now, because it's gonna cost more,
it's more,
to have them kind of just estimated.
it's more our money out of consultant budget. We're like at the tail end of the project. And I don't know if we have consultant budget left.
Oh, yeah, you would want to consult, it's kind of something that, like I said, it was one of your maintenance people or something that you've seen something somewhere.
No, this is something-
Hey,
this is
some guys are over here doing this, this technology, because there's everything from the regular standard vaultings type stuff, to the structured thing, to the cell thing that they.
To get a good estimate, order of magnitude estimate, we'd want to talk with the consultants who are building these things on a day-to-day basis. It's just that I'm running out of consultant dollars, and this would be a new effort.
You can have people going.
And so, and it would also slow down us trying to get approved. So that's why my recommendation would be, the parks plan doesn't preclude that from happening. There's nothing that we're doing in the parks plan that would preclude that from being vaulted at some point. So it's still on the table that we can look at in the future. Because even if you do disc golf, you're talking 4 poles and some concrete. So you're not really putting a lot of infrastructure investment into it. And then when we do the 6-year update, we can look at what that looks like and if you could add fuel that way. That's one option. Or as I said, it's the council, if they want me to find out how much it would cost to be able to look at that as an alternative, I can gladly come back with those numbers as well. I'm just looking.
Can the frisbee fields be fenced in and also be part of the dog parks? Because dogs love frisbees. Or would that hinder somebody
I think
being
that-
able to do?
Yeah, I think that would hinder, there'd be some issues
Frisbee
there.
football.
The frisbee golf is not the big issue, because even if you vaulted it, you could still do the frisbee golf. It's not that's what I'm saying, that's not a,
It's something that can be done like probably close to yesterday too.
yeah, it's not something that would preclude us from doing in the future or require us to make alterations. As I said, Councilmember Bolton, the finance, or if that's something you guys want me to look into, I'm just looking for guidance from the
We
committee.
want more parking and more fields, so.
Right now, we've got 2 at Midtown Park. 2 fields.
Oh, yeah, no, it's like all.
Well, and I saw, and we're trying to, and 4 baselines.
I'm sure it'll move and morph itself as it moves along.
That's what we're trying to move forward with right now. Yeah.
And be able to figure out, as far as the school district being able to get a pool, because it's not.
Yeah, they would have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, they can't go there. They can't go over here.
They can go over here.
It's like, is there 3 acres over there? They said they needed 3
I
acres.
think this is 10, right? This is
It's,
12.
when you pull out the police station,
It's on page 2 of the PDF that I sent, yeah.
when you pull, I kind of pulled out the police station, it's about 7 acres.
So is that we, why is it an issue for if the school district said, hey, there's a spot right there, that's an issue for us, and we're
It's,
in,
it's in White River School District. They can't build their facility in White River School District.
but why, right, right, sorry.
Oh,
There's no reason.
As we don't control the school district,
I know.
the school district is telling us they will not build it in White River School District property.
So what I would of course need is a note from Dent saying that we can't build in White River School District, and why would they?
I
Well,
was thinking it has something to do with the bonds.
I can talk to Merrily and see, but,
Because there's no reason.
it is free land, right?
Right.
Right, so like, there's land right there. Right, so is there a state law, is there an RCW?
It might be because if the school's funding part of it to help build a pool that's for the Sumner Bonnie Lake School District, then those funds would not cover another school district, because that's White River School District, so.
See, that's, if it was a commercial operation,
Yeah.
it might be kind of, because it doesn't matter, because they don't pay taxes, right? The only reason the district lines are there is the taxing district and kind of,
Okay,
that's
yeah,
really why, so.
yeah,
So
I'll ask Merrily.
yeah, that would be.
That was their answer on the community,
That was their easy.
or their. No, they worked pretty hard, right, trying to find that, because they're pretty sure they're gonna lose the pool at Center High School.
I mean, and we could do it in downtown. I mean, it would be a change to kind of what we think downtown would be, but we could do a pool facility in the community garden and build a park
community center,
and do the community center
kitchen.
in downtown. And take it out of Midtown. I mean, if that's what the committee wants me to do, I can look at,
We can rent out the community kitchen for parties, weddings, make it a venue. Also have the swimming pool,
Yeah.
so you could have, parties for the seniors and the senior night, swim nights.
let's to look at moving the community center to downtown as part of the parks plan.
I think that would be possibly faster, and it would give us another field maybe.
Well, you can't build, right.
If we take the building,
We take the building down.
Here,
Sure.
you feel up there.
do you want me to,
3 acres now.
do you want me to talk to the consultant about that? I'm just looking for
Yeah.
head nods.
Yes,
Whatever works, and, but why would you
Purple
even
and
involve a
community.
consultant?
Because we're doing the parks plan right now, and so when we bring the parks plan forward, we don't have anything shown for the downtown, because that wasn't where we thought the parks were gonna go, but if the committee is wanting us to look at
Sure.
moving the community center kind of near the community garden and providing space for that, I can work with them to draw up
well,
that
and
as well.
if we put the community center there, that can also be part of the senior center, which is right next to the food bank lockers, not right next to the library. It can be used, it's right next to the emergency center as well as the police department, so we can use that as a hot and cold rooms for the winter and the summer. And it would also take add parking to, if it became partly the senior center, then it could add, we could use the old senior center for,
So,
some, like a teen area or something near the parks.
let me do this. Let me talk with Scott and Conservation Techniques. We can see if we have a little bit of budget left where we could do kind of a schematic design for a facility in downtown that centers kind of on the green.
It's just the space then, mainly, right? It's just like, oh, I need this many acres.
Yeah, and kind of drawing kind of a footprint of the building, kind of what we did for Midtown Park.
Yeah, and then that would give you 2,
1 to 2.
1 to 2 spaces there, right? So you probably get a field on
Yeah, you might be able to go 3 fields
3
there.
fields.
And it's important, the nice thing is about both of those areas, the stormwater's already been dealt with. So whether we
This
build,
one's easy, right? There's stormwater here.
and same with Midtown. So when that pond was built, it was built to take our stormwater from our development.
Where's the stormwater here?
It goes over the side.
Over
Yeah,
the
on the other side.
Yeah, there's a big infiltration pond that's down the hill and all of the downtown area.
Most of it.
Yeah, you have to do treatment on site, which is, you can do filters, there's lots of different things you can do. And then you can just discharge into the street and then it goes to that facility to be maintained. That's kind of like the apartment complex, that Locust one right around Locust, you'll notice they don't have any stormwater pond. They were able to put a treatment system in and then go down to. And that would deal with solve the canopy issue too. So I can talk with Scott and see if he'd be. It might,
Your last pennies to
yeah,
scrape
yeah,
together
we might have a little
the
excess.
downtown plan.
Yeah, we might have a little excess and I will email him as soon as this meeting's over.
I think that would be, that'd be okay
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
And the seniors would have what they want, and we have a state-of-the-art kitchen. We could even do like, use it for Parks and Rec because, or a recreation program, because then we can have cooking classes, cake decorating, all
Okay.
kinds of different activities that would be community activities, right? Where people could even walk.
And that is, was the thought of that community center that's in town. We can put it downtown.
And I do have a question about our little tiny library over there too, like, since we're having
Go for it.
discussions about everything, like,
Right.
is there a possibility of adding up on that? Either of you, I don't think you were at the convention, were you at the AWC convention?
No.
You were there, so did you ever do a walkthrough of their library?
Oh, no.
Oh. Like, it's 3 stories, or 4 stories, because they have parking garage underneath, right? But, in Spokane,
Okay.
did you do that? Did you go?
I've seen their library.
It's a walking
I didn't see
tour.
it. It was 4 stories.
It was
It's got
amazing.
2 when I was over.
Yeah, well, it goes underneath and they have like, they even have
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
a
Spokane.
radio station, they have a television station, and it's all free for the citizens, so that if they wanted to make a commercial for their business, they can utilize the television cameras and stuff. But just to be able to add it up
That would be,
so that they can have workspaces and,
yeah, I know the library's doing their library master plan. It just kind of depends on how the library system is structured, like in Puyallup. The Puyallup Library is actually run by the city of Puyallup. Here, it's run by the Pierce County Library District, and so we'd have to talk to them. I know they're doing their,
Strategic plan.
right now.
Strategic
just
plan.
working on Sumner.
yeah, they're doing their strategic plan.
Yeah, so they're looking at the strategic plan right now. They actually just sent me a link to their survey,
Yeah.
so I'll be sharing that. And I'll be attending some internal meetings as well.
Great, awesome.
So they looked for land.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think if we can add up on it, if they could build up and maybe, fix kind of the outer structure a little bit, but they could push out, is there a possibility?
They could push out, they could put, yeah, no, they could do,
Because there's not stormwater problems or wetlands back there behind the library.
That's,
So they could add some conference rooms or something and then go up. There's a little bit of a field back there. Walked completely all the way.
the trail, the trail is right on the property. They could, in theory, go pretty close to that trail.
They could make like a little, sanctuary sitting area, here's the trailhead, sit and relax before you enter,
They looked at one time of buying the 7.
yeah, I remember that. And then they were looking at that old church on South Prairie.
And I don't know,
Buy that.
I was gonna set up a meeting with Jasmine or something,
Yeah.
with the regional director. I just haven't had a chance to.
It's like they have free land right here, they have a building, so,
I don't
you know,
think
just
they-
add up and out.
They didn't like this location, is what the matter.
At least the old
But if
man,
we
the
have a
old-
community center.
the old,
and This like a little down.
The old people didn't, they have all new staff, so I don't know,
New ideas.
new ideas, maybe, I don't know.
Cause I don't remember what they were doing, their integration with the poly or whatever.
They were wanting to be, at one time, where that new 7-Eleven is on South Prairie? They were trying to get that for property from Jeff Oliver, years ago, and they just couldn't come to a deal, and so Jeff put the 7-Eleven.
Can't get Slurpees at a library.
No.
No, we don't.
And then some people,
He says the coffee shop.
we don't pick winners, we don't pick winners.
Coffee in the library.
It's the property owner, they get to pick what they wanna do to develop their property, just like I had to tell Chief when the Angels, what was it? Coffee Angels, Java Angels. When everybody was mad at us that Java Angels was leaving, it was not us.
Right.
That was the property owner, he decided to sell the property and knock it down to a car wash.
What is that? Is that like a three-story car wash or
It's a
something?
car, it's a car wash.
That's like,
It's big.
what is that?
I don't see why the car wash people wouldn't want a coffee place to go
Right.
to.
One day printing.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's called bringing in business.
Like I said,
Oh, my car sure looks dirty. While I'm getting a coffee. I think
we
that's
tried,
a
we did everything we could, we tried to put them together, we gave them, we switched contact information. But ultimately, it's not our
Yeah.
job to pick what you do with your property as long as it's within the overall structure of the regulation. We don't pick and choose to that level. Both were permitted uses, the owner can use it for either one.
So the last, capital facilities meeting for the school district is on, the 4th of, is on the 4th of March. And, you know, I can dialogue Mary, I'll ask her the two questions, I'll say, if we have 3 acres over here, will they consider it, and why not? Why, you know, what's the deal, what's the problem with White River? It's, right? So,
It's
yeah.
free land, yeah.
What I plan on doing is just taking the drawing that you already did from Midtown Park, picking it up and flopping it over here.
Yeah.
Because
It'll be at,
5 or something.
I think it starts, typically it starts at 5.
because the library could also partner with us on the community center, and get a third floor on the community center.
Oh, yeah.
They should be happy now with the money, right?
The library, what now?
If we move the community center over here, we get a third floor on it in the community. I mean, there's
Yeah,
thousands of options.
and then we can turn the library into a city hall.
So.
So I can have an office, or all of us can have an office, we can meet with our constituents. Instead of coffee shop.
So the tree canopy stuff,
Your car.
is that tree canopy like new regulations or it's like a citywide thing or something?
I don't know.
For the WSUPs, you know, 'cause you mentioned.
That was the EIS. So when we did the environmental impact statement, the mitigation measure that was agreed to in the environmental impact statement is we would preserve 22.6 or 23.6 acres of tree canopy. And the park was identified as the primary spot. And since we don't have an agreement with Terragon, there's no way to count any tree canopy that we might be able to negotiate with them until we have an agreement.
Yeah, so it's just, it was for the entire property with the EIS, Costco and the whole.
Yeah,
piece
and so the mitigation, so in exchange for them cutting down 36 plus acres for the commercial development, plus whatever we're gonna cut down for the residential, the mitigation measure was identified at keep maintaining 22.6.
But you know, those tall firs are kind of pathetic trees. They're like, you know, right, there's like cottonwoods and there's tall firs, right? They're right in the same class. You know, they're all gonna like fall. Nobody said anything when we went out there and cut down half of them because it was root rot.
We will continue to maintain the tree canopy.
I'm not saying there doesn't need to be trees. I'm just like, what type of, you know, because in a park, you normally have a lot of different types of trees.
Right, but this was maintaining the existing tree. So yes, over time, most of those trees will die and be replaced.
Just because they're pruning.
Yes, but going through and clear cutting it also would be kind of,
Nobody ever.
So if a tree dies, not at our fault, because we've been maintaining them, why would we have to replace it if it dies?
no, I'm just saying, yes,
Seeing the canopy.
what I'm saying is, as we cut down trees, we're not replacing them. I'm just saying, as you build a park, yes, you're gonna put trees in and do things in a
Yeah,
park.
okay.
But the canopy provision in the EIS was retaining the existing canopy and I would say of all the comments we heard, while there was a big demand for us wanting to have fields at Midtown Park, there was equally as many comments of don't clear cut the property.
Well, we
Which-
have
Which,
27 to 30 acres that we can use because we have a 10-acre stormwater pond. And then we're saying, oh, but 22 of that is gonna be, tree canopy.
yep,
So that leaves like literally 5 acres.
yeah, we are.
If that we can.
That's what I'm saying is the plan that we brought forward is the maximum. The maximum.
Yeah, but see, with the, that's what I was trying to figure out with the tree canopies, yeah, I think we gotta like be more like creative with what we're doing or whatever, because,
If we
you
could,
know, I was in the, obviously, the original agreement, right?
yeah, this was in the environmental impact statement, so we could,
And nobody ever said that we couldn't cut down trees over there.
I-
20 years until like recently, somebody said, oh, you can't cut down trees.
I can't, I can only speak to what was written in the environmental impact statement.
Yeah, which is fine. That doesn't mean that, you know, we don't have ways of dealing.
There is, like I said, if we had an agreement with Terradon, if we could get an agreement with Terradon to develop their property.
Yeah, but they don't want to keep trees either. You know, they're gonna clear cut, the first thing they're gonna do is clear cut the entire place.
I understand, but if you could have an agreement with Terradon and we could share that,
Sure,
but we haven't gotten to a point where we can get an agreement with Terradon because of.
yeah, but how come if the EIS covers the entire piece, you can go back to that, right? Then all of a sudden,
It's
then
specifically, it was specifically identified park.
specific in the EIS.
In the EIS.
Well, it's the 2 acre triangle park down South Prairie.
Yep.
14,
And we counted that.
50-foot
Yeah.
buffer around the entire perimeter of the residential. The grove of cedars that's in the
Center-ish.
center-ish.
Yeah.
Of the residential.
Yeah.
So some of that tree retention is on.
In there, and then some of it's on us.
But those trees are terrifying. I mean, you have a good windstorm and.
Yeah, they tend to be that way. But we can't, we
Not
can't, cut them down officially.
Windstorm.
There, no, these aren't cottonwoods. Most of these are all
Evergreen.
all Doug fir or cedar. We're not talking cottonwoods. This is an old demonstration forest of
Right.
old growth fir trees.
Which is really weird because before, you know, is WSU demonstration forest. It was specifically, you know, grown and cut down, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a logging area, yeah.
And it was, you know, this whole place was like logged off in.
In the 1800s.
Yeah.
So is there a possibility to get creative
You weren't there.
and work with Terradon? Yes, but that's gonna be a completely different discussion. But yeah, we counted the 2 acres down there. And that's why I say moving, if you move the community center, you do pick up square footages that you could possibly get another
I
ball,
think that would be
another ball field.
a good choice.
Yeah, it'd be really a good thing, right? Three.
To
ball
move
fields
the
in there.
community center.
And it'd be 3 ball fields and 16 spots.
Yeah.
And it's all a different design, and I'm already gonna talk to them about changing it. Right now, they have where basically you're hitting from the back of the end zones or the back of the goal line out. But I saw one, the way they get it in the sprinkler is it's kind of offset, and so basically it's just the outfield that then becomes it, and it's a little bit easier to do it with 2 baseball. So I'm gonna talk to them about that next. We'll get as creative as we can.
Fun. Yeah.
So I had a question about, the traffic study at Church Lake and West Taps.
Yes.
Yeah, so, the struggle session we had with the insurance commissioner the other day was, kind of spurred me to try to understand why a simple solution at that intersection doesn't work. I drive through the one over on Forest Canyon and,
Oh,
right,
yeah, that new one.
that new one over there.
So we,
And it's beautiful. It's so nice. Driving through it now. And I'm just like, that seems like two stop signs and we can fix the problems at that intersection.
so it doesn't meet warrants. And so when you start putting in stop signs when they don't meet warrants, and you have other intersections that you don't put the stop sign in that has the same level of traffic, you've just not created liability for yourself.
Mhm.
So you really need to wait till it meets warrants for a stop sign. And based on traffic engineering, it doesn't. We do have a presentation coming to council. I forget the date, John, sometime in April, or is it May? On that intersection control and out for West House. We got it on the agenda. So if you look at
It's
your,
done.
it's done.
It's done, and when you say it's not meeting warrants, you're saying that it doesn't warrant a stop sign on Church Lake.
Correct.
Because there's not
And-
enough traffic.
Correct.
By putting a stop sign on there, we're going to, how do we get liability?
Well, there's two. If there's a wreck and you put a stop sign up where you don't need warrants, you've got liability there too. And if you have other intersections in the city that have the same level of traffic that you don't put a stop sign on because it has the same level of traffic and it didn't meet warrants either, you create liability. And really traffic, and we talk about this in the report that's gonna come to council. Traffic stop signs are not for speed control, right? They are actually for turning control movements.
Yeah, which is why I want one there, because that's the danger. Right?
Well, the danger from everything, when,
Blind corner.
that's the issue.
Yeah.
It's a sight distance issue. So what is actually is proposed is kind of a three-phased project. One is actually lowering the grade of the road so that that sight distance issue goes away. So when you're sitting there at the intersection, you can actually see the oncoming cars. So that will solve that issue. And then, in a few years, I think in a couple, based on traffic projections, it does meet a point at which it meets the signal warrants or a traffic control warrants for a stop sign. At that point, I think it's 2031 based on, it could be earlier, which is why we're going to be doing traffic counts routinely. But right now, based on projections, it'll be 2031 where it actually meets warrants for a stop sign. We would put the stop sign in, and long-term, it will be warrants for a signal. When you look at the traffic study, we did evaluate a roundabout. We evaluate all options based on cost and everything that we are not recommending a roundabout that location. We're recommending a signal once it meets the warrants for signal. So it's kind of a three-phased approach. But yeah, it doesn't meet, and you really, and if you're doing, you don't want to do stop signs for traffic control because it also creates a lot of people blow their own and have a lot of collisions. So really, until you meet that warrants for turning movements, based on turning movements, you don't want to do the stop sign. And so that's the recommendation from the transportation.
Yeah, I just have really a hard time with that, because that is just a horrible
It
intersection.
seems like the liability
I mean, you're
is
gonna-
on the amount of
So
accidents.
we know, yeah, so that's what I'm wondering.
But that's the
Do we
site,
know how many accidents? there were
yeah,
in that
that's
intersection?
all of that. I don't know off the top of my head. It's in there. And so it's like this. So the problem with that intersection isn't necessarily you need to have traffic control because there's long queues backing up on West Taft Highway, right? You're not getting long queues of traffic. So it's not meeting the need to have turning movement control so that you can allow other vehicles to turn. What you have is this, I think Councilmember Fulton said it correctly, this kind of sight distance issue, right? Where you can't see cars. To fix that, you actually need to lower the grade of the road. And whether we do a stop sign in the future, whether we do a signal in the future, that project has to get done.
Well, you have to, it's looking right, that is the biggest site challenge, because you can't see
And that's,
as you look right.
yeah, and that's why that's why the initial proposal would be to lower the road looking, right?
Yeah, you pull up,
If you're.
It's actually-
you're on Taps, and you want to take a left side of Church Lake, so you're heading east on Church Lake.
Yeah.
As you pull up,
Yeah.
you can't see the traffic coming
Because of the trees.
because of the trees. right?
Yeah, so you've got one issue there.
You
And
can look, right time of year, you can look between the telephone pole and,
So the trees are mainly on public property.
those are all on private and they're technically, and we could technically, I looked at it. We could technically,
Call them a fence and say them.
no, but you could technically require them to come down because they're gonna be trying. I will grant, when I send that
That would
letter
be
to,
very unpopular, right?
they will come into the council chamber, just be prepared. The other way, when you're looking left, there's a small dip in the road before.
Oh, yeah. That one's.
The left is the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to fix that, that is actually to lower the road profile.
Right.
So that when you come into that intersection, instead of having that dip, it's just straight. So it's not that the traffic engineers are saying there's not a problem. I just think that the solution they're recommending is kind of this regrade the road. That'll solve that problem. When it meets warrants, we put the stop sign in, and then when it meets signal warrants, we put the full top.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting to see the collision history there. I have two elderly constituents that bug me about this every.
Yeah, and I will say, there's a stop sign now, if you have a stop sign there, there's no guarantee, because that blind dip, you're not going to solve that problem with the stop sign, and that's really what the issue is that dip and the vegetation. And so that's why we really look at warrants, and when we did the traffic, this TIA, we did counts both in the summer and in the fall. Because that intersection has completely different operational issues in the summer and the fall. Because in the summer, you get a lot of traffic going up to the park. And so we did traffic counts in the summer, we did traffic counts in the fall, and we're basing on this, the higher volume of when it meets warrants. And that's why, based on projections, it's looking like in the next 4 to 5 years, there will be eventually a stop sign there. But the first project that we're proposing is just lowering the road grade profile. The challenge with that is, and we're including in the cost estimate, is there's a 6-inch steel water line that runs through there that would also have to be lowered. Because when we lower the road, we have to lower the water line.
Where is that project going to end up in the rest of the mix? How does that work?
That's it.
Is that in the upcoming budget? Is that what you're saying?
We have it on the CIP. We have it on the doing the design and everything in the CIP this year, and then doing construction next year. So it's gonna be up to council if that's a project that they want to push through in the coming year. It's part of the next CIP.
So Kelly,
Yes,
you
sir.
know that view triangle that you referred to on those trees, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you want me to go, I will send a letter tomorrow.
No, wait. So Mr. McClymons, I think that's a rental. I think that home is a rental. I don't know. I could be 100% wrong, right? The city could send a letter saying, hey, we noticed that your trees are in this view triangle, and I don't know if the city would cut them down for free or whatever.
No, they will be all.
They would have to do it all.
They're responsible for maintaining their property consistent.
Then would it be considered eminent domain where?
No,
Yeah.
View triangle, that's on everything. Anytime, you have view triangles all over the city to make sure that people don't.
Well, just.
I mean, we can definitely start to do things. It's been.
So the next workshop in March, right? So that'll be what, the 5th of March? Is our next CDC meeting?
I believe so.
I'll try to get there before then.
And then I know we're bringing the actual intersection analysis to
Excellent.
council sometime in late April or early May. I just don't have the date. If you look on your council futures for our workshop, it's right on there.
Yeah.
And I just want to give you a preview. Yes, it talks about a roundabout. No, staff is not recommending a roundabout. Has huge right-of-way implications. It just.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem, some of around that stuff, is that it does create a some sort of a right of way, right? And so then we are into it, some sort of a taking situation.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Well, we're gonna pay no matter what.
yeah,
Really? I wish they'd come take my property, right? Literally.
but I just want to point out, because there is another intersection, there are other intersections where we are recommending a roundabout, and we think it works better.
Yeah,
So it really is a situational analysis. It looks good, I ain't gonna lie, the plan looks really, really good, but it just didn't, cost wise, right away wise, it just, no one. Yeah, because we were like, no, too much.
so, and just because, since we have a minute, we gotta talk about in the remembrance of Tom's sidewalks. So we had a sidewalk scheduled to go in over there on Church Lake, right there at that corner? Is that like off of the, seems to me like that's been, we approved that 2 years
I don't
ago.
remember where it was what. I know they did Angela.
Angelone was the top one. I know they're working on coming up with the sidewalk projects for
Okay.
now, but I think the one Tom was referring to is the one that goes from Locust down to the Funnel Creek Trail. That was the big one that he had issues with.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. And that goes through Church Lake too, right across the front of Church Lake where it comes into Veterans Memorial Drive.
Right.
As part of the Angeline
Intersection.
Angeline Veterans Memorial Drive roundabout project, that you'll be getting a briefing on here in the next 45 days to obligate the funds for that design project. It includes a 10-foot wide sidewalk all the way back to Locust Avenue.
Okay. Yeah, so no, we had one, it's on, Church Lake. You get to the end of Church Lake and it doglegs right and turns into like Kelly Lake, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Right, so on that dog.
I don't know where that one's at.
The thing is that from this street here, from this street here, if we got over here to that street with sidewalk, that little corner,
Yeah.
one, it's a safety thing. Two, it also connects,
Yeah, that was-
it connects all the sidewalks from here to this neighborhood, all the way down to here. So you'll have like a continuous set of sidewalks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what that, where they put the guardrail in.
Yeah.
I heard, I'll talk with Ken. I think that's going in. They're working on the sidewalk project for this year, but I don't know where that one ranks.
Cause that'll make a really nice, long,
Yeah, that was good.
continuous set of sidewalks and.
Yeah, Gwen, you have anything for open? Or-
Yeah, I just, wanna figure out, I would like to bring back, AB, B 24-202.
We're gonna have to like. rush
So I don't know if we can
downstairs.
put that
We'll have
to,
to go downstairs.
Yeah, because that ordinance was.
Yeah.
That ordinance was
Yeah,
adopted.
so-
Our recommendation is gonna be, well, our recommendation would be if there's specific sections that you have concerns with, to talk about those specific sections and we can draft additional ordinances,
Mhm.
then bringing back the entire,
Yeah, so just sections.
yeah. What were the?
I just, my concerns are like, and I'll bring this up at council too, but it's just, like, there should have been a table of contents that had everything itemized and what page I could find it on. And because you have your little, index in the back, which is all the little squares and everything, this thing.
Yeah,
But there was no, it's just like a big hot mess. It's just a
Yeah.
big blob. And there's no table of contents which says, okay, we're going to be speaking on,
yeah, and that,
modifications of restricted parking. And I feel like I've itemized everything. everything is color coordinated now. And they're like all over the map. So
Yeah.
the green parts, the money and the forestry should be in one section so that I can have an itemized table of contents. Okay, go to page 30 and then you can read all of the definitions and all of that.
well,
Go to page 24 and we can talk about the sewer
the problem is,
and,
the way the ordinance is laid out, it's laid out the way the municipal code is, and so you're not going to get a table of contents for the legislative side, because you're amending. I think this was the concern that you had also talked with me about. You're amending multiple sections of the code all over the place, and so you don't really have a table of contents for legislation, because it's not a document. When you go to the municipal code,
I'm just saying, if I get something like this again, I'm not gonna approve it ever again.
so what we talked about was,
One bill per page would be great.
well, I don't know, what we talked about was splitting the chapters up. So doing all
Yeah.
of chapter 19, all of chapter 18, what we can do on the land use matrix can serve, that's why we do that. And so what we can do is we can add a table or a page number of where that amendment is in the ordinance.
Okay, because this is like a summary too. So
Yes.
this doesn't, say, you know, and there's no page number for me to go back through all of this and
Yeah.
try to figure out where it's at.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
concern that,
So,
How do you do that? What's your workflow for that? Who does that work and what's their workflow? Okay.
I do,
What's your workflow?
I mean, in what sense?
Well, because, I mean,
We start with,
what Councilmember Fullerton is right. I mean, it's hard to walk through that and figure out how things go. And every time I go through it, I found myself coming with different answers.
because they're not related, they're not all, it's not like you're doing the same thing. They're maintenances to different sections of the code.
So how do you do it?
So I look at when I'm reading it, I'm reading the municipal code at the same time,
Right.
right? So, because even if you table the contents, they wouldn't line up because when you're in Title 15, you need to be looking at Chapter 15. So for when I'm writing it, I have the current version of Chapter 15 up, or 1502. And so I can look and see how it works within the framework of 1502. So don't disagree. This was a big one. There was a lot in there, and I think this was the same concern you raised, and I've already talked to Nettie, who's working on this year's packages. We're going to bring it in pieces and do Title 19, Title 18, Title 17, which means everything's somewhat more related. And I can put page numbers on
yeah.
that ordinance.
And I'd also like to have a copy, you know, when you're referring to an RCW, I'm not gonna go back into the state's legislative branch and figure out where that RCW is. I mean, I can go through and I can Google it, but it's like,
So you want to
RCWs, there's BLMC, MC, you know, so all of that, Bonnie Lake Municipal Code,
we can put that in, but it will
that
make,
could be, I know.
it'll make the packet huge, and I have no
If
problem
we're
with.
having a one issue statement, then it's gonna be a lot less papers. Unless we have 20 of them, like we did, this was literally 20 different things. And it was really kind of convoluted and it's hard to read.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying,
Obviously,
because it's not like you're reading a textbook where if you start on page 1 and you read to page 30, it flows in order.
right,
Right, it's not like a planning, like a comp plan where if you start on page 1 and you read to page 30, you have the totality.
Right.
These are going into targeted sections of the municipal code, so you have to, I guess, my workflow is I'm reading the whole chapter of the municipal code as we're making the amendments.
right.
Right, and so I think it's a little different in its construction.
What sections are you working on this year? And we can go review that section.
We're working on everything from Title 15 through 19.
Okay,
I mean, it's a lot.
yeah,
So we're gonna break it down into more distinct elements. There'll just be more ordinances.
and we don't link to the RCWs from
Yes,
we do.
yeah, if you go online, see, the other thing is if you go
I don't
online,
know, use the other one.
yeah, and if you click on it, it'll take you to the RCW.
Okay.
And if you link to a BLMC.
Not in the
Not in-
notes that I have.
Not in the paper, I'm talking the online version, and Councilmember Fulton, if you wanna sit down with me,
Yeah.
I can walk you through the whole thing and since I don't disagree, it's not something you can start on page 1 and read to page 30.
Invite me.
Yeah.
Guys get together.
Get together.
Yeah,
I'm curious about workflow. Right?
for us, this is the most efficient for us. It may not be the most efficient for council.
No, it's just